you have this incredible story, everything from kind of growing up and the hardship that you faced to then, literally going to prison, and actually getting somewhat of a crash course in alternative currencies, right? Most people don't think of it, but kind of the stamps on the yard, and then eventually finding Bitcoin. And I guess really just as you started to save in Bitcoin, right? Because that's really what you were doing is you basically had your couple of businesses, they were driving some cash flow, and you were taking that and converting it into Bitcoin. Were you doing it because you thought that it would appreciate in value? Did you think it because, hey, the banks can't take this from me? Like what was the kind of thought process in terms of why you wanted to take the dollars and convert it to Bitcoin? Even before really, in 2016, there wasn't as much attention on it, given what it is today.
So back then, I was like, okay, I'm cool with it. The first thing that really got my attention, Pomp, was the fact of how easy it was to buy. Right, the barrier of entry was incredibly low. I didn't have to like. I remember one time someone brought up and said, "Hey, you want to invest in some marijuana stocks with E-Trade?" Or I would try to go to these platforms. I'm like, man, this shit is just tiring. Like, I gotta have this, or I have to have this amount of money. I'm like, bro, I don't have extra $1,000 like this. You know what I mean? Like, damn, to invest on the platform now. I might have some misinformation now, but then that was my thing. And then I got tired of dealing with the stigma of, well, what questions they gonna ask me? Do I have to, they're gonna ask me about having my record, or they're gonna ask me about this and that and the third. So when they showed me how to buy Bitcoin, it was so simple. Like, damn, this is what decentralization feels like. This is what freedom feels like. Just buying it because you can. So that was the first thing. The second part was also the fact that it could make money. I had never purchased an asset that could do that. So me just seeing it on the screen go up and down, I looked at the graphs, some of the graphs they had on Instagram at that time, and what stood out the most was the dip. It was the dip. It was that bear market time they had from Silk Road when it was just going sideways for years. That's what gave me validity because in my mind I said that breeded real fear in people for them to know, okay, either I can stay or I can go. But that told me this is legit. Because if it just kept going up with no dips at all, like a linear line, I would have thought it was some bullshit. But I saw dips, and I'm like, all right, well, that gives me the reality to know, like, okay, this is worth doing. Because you just don't nothing is linear. You just don't always go up. You have to have times of peril. So that's what let me know that Bitcoin was legit, and that's
Yeah.
what I said. All right, I do it.
It's kind of like life, right? You got ups and downs, and you end up making it where you want to go. What's so fascinating to me, and you and I have talked about this before, but I think that Bitcoin has this very special kind of place in the Black community, right? In terms of a lot of people have become aware of things like predatory lending discrimination, right? And some of the more complex things. But I think your story is so powerful because, as somebody who had gone to prison, a lot of society basically boxes you out, right? If you have a record. And so whether it was trying to get a job at the moving company, or trying to open up certain accounts or participate in certain aspects of the financial industry, maybe it's not impossible, but it's harder. Right. And there's more friction there. And so something like Bitcoin that is decentralized, that's built on this open protocol, nobody cares, right? Nobody cares the color of your skin. Nobody cares what you've done in the past. They just want to know, do you have the money to buy it or do you have the collateral? And I think that maybe, you can shed some light just on like, as you've gone down this path and now, really, really educated yourself, like, how do you see that and the importance for the Black community or those who've been in prison and kind of some of these groups of folks who people might not be as aware how important Bitcoin is?
Well, the fact that there is friction to traditional finances, but there's traction towards Bitcoin does prove a lot. And I believe when people actually, because there are a lot of barriers when we talk about Black people, and the one way that they can really benefit or actually benefit from a decentralized money that way is the fact that no one, the initial point of them even buying it, there will be a breath of fresh air. Because if I go through this friction, I know a lot of other people are going through this friction as well. And, as we do in our groups on Clubhouse, we are teaching you the basics of knowing, like, your money is going backwards, you know, and the way to really that I really noticed it back then in 2016 was like this. You know, I answer a lot of questions and stories and what I experienced. So one thing I always noticed very early on was that every venture I started, I either had to put up the money and had to put up more money than initial money. So I would always be going down. Everything was a build yourself out of debt situation. And it didn't matter what it was. You know, you would have to put up initial money. It's like even flipping a house or trying to really or invest in real estate. You have to put up the collateral. You still have to continuously invest, whether it's maintenance, whether it's you have to hire people, no matter what it is, bills, taxes, whatever. You always have to do that even before you turn profit on that house or even create some type of revenue. But you still have to go work for that other money. Bitcoin is a situation where you could really set it and forget it. You can buy it and you give it time, it'll show its appreciation. And when I speak of it from that level, I'm really trying to speak about the freedom of energy or the financial freedom it gives for you to really live your life. And, you know, a lot of times when it comes to Bitcoin, what we don't really experience in the Black community is our own control over anything. Like we never necessarily had control over our assets. We don't really have control over our own words. Hell, we came to this country as an asset and we still have to pay capital gains tax for being here, if you really look at it. So that freedom portion, and it's just how the story is told to people who aren't necessarily open to that way of living yet. You know, when we were coming up, or you would hear people say, "Hey, it's too risky to invest," you know, save your money. That's what they would tell our community. But then they'll put the lottery in our community that has a very infinite chance of winning. I mean, a very small chance of winning. But people play it all the time. They just put their money in there, watch it die, watch it die, watch it die. Nobody ever took that time to actually see where that was going. But then again, like I was telling one of my friends, we would say the government put dope in the hood, but they kept finances and stocks and investments on their side. But you would tell Black people, hey, you know, it's too risky. You don't want to do that, save your money. But you don't have no problem with us wasting our time and wasting our lives selling dope or playing in these streets with some bullshit. So it's those type of comparisons that people that have to open up folks' eyes. Because I could talk to them about Bitcoin all day. Yeah, you know, the price appreciates, it's this, that, and the third. But for people who never even experienced that type of life, that means nothing to them. So it's a slow introduction. But one of the greatest introductions I saw was that I could even be in a bad place financially, because it might go through times I don't have a job, especially back then, or it might be times things were slow, or even until, you know, just 2019, brother, I used to make 100, not in 2019, but when I started out, I used to make $150 a month sometimes, and I would still go buy Bitcoin, even if it was $10, because I knew this was appreciating, this was going up. And it was better for me to do that than waste it on something else. So there's a lot of different areas that has to be touched. But one that I like to bring up most of the time to people is everything you touch, everything you've been buying before Bitcoin has been depreciating in value, or it appreciates so slowly that you cannot keep up. Everything, or even the iPhone 12 Pro Max you could buy today, you'll take it to the pawn shop. I tell you that, I promise you they're gonna try to give you half off of what you bought. So everything depreciates. Why the hell are you buying? Everything pretty much depreciates while you're buying.
What you're really highlighting here, and I think is one of the most underrated aspects of Bitcoin, is when you start to go down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, you get a education on monetary policy, on economics, on currencies, on really the economy, and you start to realize that the system is working exactly as it is designed, right? But really, to me, it's a gap between the educated and the uneducated, and not in a negative way. It's just that's what it is, right? There's people who understand exactly what you just said, that the assets around you that are consumptive, they're going to go down in value. The investment assets are going to go up in value, right? And it's all because the dollar's being devalued against those investment assets. And so when you learn that, your eyes get opened and you start changing your behavior, right?
Right. Yeah, that's really what it was. Just noticing what appreciation was, just everything. Because you got a lot of times people buy dumb shit, man. They waste money on shoes. They waste money on weed, liquor. And I mean waste like way too much. You waste a lot of time. Or even right now in Bitcoin, right? Just think about it. And I said this before, and it's not to hurt no feelings, but if you're thinking about going to business, and your business necessarily is too legacy, you're probably better off just buying Bitcoin and seeing what can happen. You know what I'm saying? Seeing what you can grow from there. I mean, because we're at a point in time now where, like we talked about before, Michael Saylor just bought another $1 billion. And when billionaires make these moves, what type of moves do I feel we have to make? You know, I mean, especially as the Black community, there's some numbers I looked at myself. Like when Elon made that big buy of $1.5 billion of Bitcoin, I'm thinking like, damn, okay. Yeah, I individually might not have $1.5 billion right now to buy Bitcoin. Not saying I won't though. Not saying I won't. Because I always feel no matter what the price of Bitcoin is a great buy. I tell that to people all the time. They're like, hey, should I buy here? Should I buy here? Listen, you're going to buy Bitcoin at $100,000 anyway. So if it hit an all-time high of $58,000, but you feel it can go to 100, doesn't really matter. The price of Bitcoin has been proven not to matter to me, you know, because what matters is actual Satoshi. That has already been proven to be valuable than a dollar. But yeah, so once you have that reality, everything just starts becoming a little bit more simpler to do. You still want to figure out how you want to live your life, and I think that's what's something that trips up a lot of black people in general. You know, like simple things like budgeting. One of the best books I ever read that I recommend to people is Profit First by Mike McCallum, because that book helped me put money in buckets and by percentages and by, you know, what's important, how it matters, and how you can still live your life by using, you know, still having your business money here or what you pay yourself. Like those types of things is what help open my mind. So like you said before, Bitcoin helps you study economics. It helps you study, you know, global policy, monetary policy, all that stuff. But then you start taking it to another level, like, all right, how can I really make this work for me? And that was the thing for me. You know, I realized that if I apply the attitude to Bitcoin, like how rappers do when they rap about selling dope or being in the streets, then I know I can win. Like I already have the tenacity to do it. I just need something better to go after. I didn't want to keep going after things that were going to give me freedom. And when people actually see that, then they can really notice like, yo, all right, I do have the money to do something, no matter how small it is, but I've been buying shit that doesn't go nowhere. Like Elon in the Cybertruck. I would not be giving him $70,000 in Bitcoin for that damn truck. And if he ever hears this podcast, hit me up. I will not be doing that. Only reason because that truck cannot 10x in a year. So I've given you $70,000 and you're going to sit on some of that Bitcoin. And now you have what? A $700,000 truck because I didn't really understand what was going on out here with Bitcoin. So, but what I was going to say was I looked at Elon Musk's big buy. And I said, all right, so how could Black people as a people compete with this buy? Well, if we have 1.2 trillion spending power in America, then 10% of that, if 10% of that was to go to Bitcoin, what would 10% of that be? That'll be $120 billion. So will we be able to get everybody on board? I hope so. However, in the very good stages, what I like to say is, you know, you put 10% of whatever you get first, based upon how I read the profits first, because you got to pay yourself in the beginning. Too many times what we give ourselves in the future is debt. Bullshit. Like you receive money, like, oh yeah, I'm good, but you remember you have to pay off a debt from 6 months ago. That's 80% of your money. I started looking at money in percentages. And so if we take that approach as a people, 10% of our spending power from what we do in USD to Bitcoin, then as a collection, we'll be worth $120 billion in BTC. Now you allow that 10x, what would that be? But that's how I had to start looking at Bitcoin. I know like that's very far out, but however, it's a mission that I love to be a part of with everything we do at Clubhouse, Bitcoin, Black Bitcoin Millionaires, and me and Zay and Lamar Wilson. But that's just how I started looking at Bitcoin as is that freedom piece. But it does start at a very ground level, again, people understand what the hell Bitcoin is and why it's beneficial for them to use it.